Welcome everybody. Welcome to the Online Mentoring Building Clarity, Confidence and Adaptability webinar. I'm Kathleen and I'm the CEO of Mowgli Mentoring. And just to kick us off, initially we're just going to do a quick round of introductions between Maia and myself, and then we'll get straight into the webinar. So as I mentioned, I'm Kathleen and I'm the CEO. Having been mentored since I was a child, training as a coach, and joining Mowgli 8 years ago, I've seen firsthand how mentoring cultivates strong entrepreneurs and leaders who go beyond creating, building and growing robust businesses. And they go beyond to actually create and shape communities, societies, and the economies within which they live. However, I do believe that for us to achieve sustainable development, we need to create enabling environments that are based on meaningful and mutually beneficial relationships that truly empower and strengthen the competencies that they need to withstand the trials and tribulations of today, as well as in their journey ahead. Maia, over to you.
Yeah, so hello everyone. My name is Maia Gedde and I'm the head of development at Mowgli Mentoring. I've worked with entrepreneurs across East Africa, Rwanda, Burundi, Jordan, Morocco, for the last 10 years, and I'm an entrepreneur myself. And I really believe that the success of any entrepreneur is determined by their ability to adapt and make the most out of their resources at hand at any one time. So the role that mentors have in helping them to see this and to see a different perspective of their own is really vital and important, which is why I work at Mowgli. I've been at Mowgli for 1.5 years now as head of development, and it's a very exciting time for us to be able to share with you and start to roll out our online programs.
Great, thanks, Maia. So before we kick off, I'd just like to share a couple of pieces of information with you. Firstly, just because I'm in Kenya, Maia's in Bristol, but my video is not always great in terms of connection. So we're going to come off video for the bulk of the presentation and then come back on video for the Q&A section at the end. So there will be question and answer available towards the end of the webinar. We'll also be circulating the recording as well as the slides with each of you. So if you don't get everything that you wanted to get in terms of capture everything that we're saying or some of the slides, then you've got a chance to relook at them. And then finally, we will be sharing some links to resources, to some forms within the webinar. So please do keep a lookout on the group chat as that's where we will be circulating them. So to kick off, I'd like to tell you a story. So in 2004, my father, Tony Berry, who is a serial entrepreneur, having started 18 businesses then, and who had lived in the Middle East for over 40 years, was feeling suffocated and bored because he felt as though the businesses that he'd been establishing for 20 years were growing well, but he was really at the end of his learning curve. And so although he knew he wanted to do something that would make and leave an economic and social impact within the region, he actually didn't know what he wanted to do. And so to get some inspiration, a great mentor of his suggested that he pick up a book every time he went through an airport until he found something that sparked his interest and captured him. And he ended up reading the book Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid by the late C.K. Prahalad. And he went to meet CK at the Michigan Business School in early 2007. And after having coffee with CK, they both decided that they needed to ask the MBA students that CK was teaching that day a key question. And the key question was, how can we create more and more successful entrepreneurs? Now, this was in 2007, before the economic recession had hit that time. And the resounding feedback was that every entrepreneur needed a mentor who stood next to him or her in a shoulder-to-shoulder relationship and supported them both in a personal and a professional capacity. Looking at his own timeline, looking at his own experience, the fact that he'd had 14 mentors throughout his life, and also looking at the different needs that an entrepreneur has access to and has within their own journey, 360-degree mentoring seemed crucial, and the one that nobody was talking about. And so he decided at that moment that part of his mission was that every entrepreneur would have access to an effective mentor who supported on both that personal and that professional level. Now, all of this was taking place at the same time as ILO and World Bank were announcing that the Middle East and North Africa region would need 80 to 100 million jobs by 2020 just to keep unemployment levels the same, not even to improve upon them. Now, this has further exacerbated the need for more and more successful entrepreneurs in the region who would then grow sustainable businesses and then would have that economic impact that the world desperately, especially the region, needed. However, the key question around quality and the effectiveness of the mentoring became the focus, and this led to the birth of Mowgli Mentoring in 2008. So driven by the dream that every entrepreneur should have access to an effective mentor so as to become successful, Mowgli Mentoring is a specialized mentoring, consultancy, and implementation organization which strengthens entrepreneurs and leaders who create, build, and grow ideas and businesses that therefore transform societies, communities, and economies. Through our 360-degree mentoring approach, which is accredited by the European Mentoring and Coaching Council, we do this by training and capacity building effective mentors who are inspired and equipped to build and nurture multiple mentoring relationships. And these mentoring relationships focus on that personal and professional level that we were talking about earlier. We run cohort-based programs that combine face-to-face and online delivery modalities to facilitate mentor training, mentor-mentee matching, mentoring practice, peer exchanges and learning, and relationship building support. And to date, we have trained over 1,300 mentors who have supported over 1,000 mentees, whether that's entrepreneurs, corporate leaders, refugee micro-entrepreneurs, women, and youth through our programs. However, the fantastic thing that we have seen is that all of them have then gone on to pass the benefits of mentoring onto others within their workplaces, their families, and their own communities. And to achieve our vision and our dream, we are focused on three key areas. The first is partnering with others and integrating customized mentoring solutions into core infrastructure and the framework of support for leaders and entrepreneurs. The second is selecting, training, and capacity building mentors who are inspired, upskilled, and equipped to build and nurture these mentoring relationships on a multiple time basis. And finally, building the evidence of the mentoring as a key component of human capital development. With a staff presence in 4 countries, in the UK, Kenya, Morocco, and Lebanon, our reach over the past 12 years since we began has expanded to include 17 countries across the Middle East, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, as well as the UK. And those regions are very much still a focus for us. However, with the growing need to support and strengthen entrepreneurs and leaders, including women and youth across the world, we're now exploring new opportunities in other parts of Sub-Saharan Africa, as well as Europe and Southeast Asia. We have, over the past 12 years, we have worked with local and international governments, foundations, and private sector partners like our Gedde Foundation, Marva Foundation, the FCO, DFID, EU, Norwegian Refugee Council, UN Women, World Bank, and many others that you can see here on the slide. Each of them has recognized the importance of mentoring in building leadership and entrepreneurial capacity within micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises by investing in it as a key support for their target beneficiaries. And so, for instance, we have the tweets and the quotes on the right-hand side, which relate to the first one on the top left is the World Bank-funded Ghana Climate Innovation Program, which was focused primarily on lifting the glass ceiling and unlocking the potential of their entrepreneurs who were participating in their accelerator program. The second was the Development Bank of Austria with the Sanad Impact Fund. This was a program in Jordan which focused on supporting refugee micro-entrepreneurs who are women to embed themselves within their local host communities, as well as to create and grow their micro-enterprises. The third is the Gedde Foundation, which has funded a program for us in Kenya, which focused on supporting entrepreneurs across Kenya to grow their businesses, as well as to support the building of more nascent ecosystems. And then finally, on the bottom right-hand corner of the quotes, we have the EBRD funded program in Tunisia, which focused on supporting women business leaders of already established businesses to increase their growth and seek geographical expansion. So before we jump into the meat of the webinar, having given that background to who we are and where we are and what we do, I just wish to recap on what we'll be talking about today. So the first key area is the critical role that mentoring plays in enabling entrepreneurs and business leaders to firstly gain clarity, increase their adaptability, build resilience, and gain confidence. The second, therefore, after that is for themselves to get themselves and their businesses ready for the new normal and the future opportunities that will present themselves then. The second key area is how mentor training can strengthen your capability as a mentor, as well as making you more effective and a better leader. The third area are the essentials and the pitfalls of effective online mentoring. And finally, how you can initiate or integrate Mowgli's structured online mentoring programs into your organizations, your initiatives, as well as your wider entrepreneurship support, development support programs. So often we, just one thing I forgot to say. From the questions that you submitted together with your registration for this webinar, we've noted that a number of you had queries with regards to mentoring tips, COVID-19 mentoring, as well as becoming a mentor and a mentee. So just for clarity's perspective, as this webinar won't be focusing on that directly, at the end of the webinar, we will be announcing the details of a follow-up webinar, which will be held at the end of June, where you'll be able to explore these areas. So stay tuned and look out for the link in the chat at the end of the webinar. And in the meantime, as part of our customized ongoing support for our participants and our alumni during these COVID times, given the request for mentoring tips, especially during this challenging time, we'll put in the group chat now a link to a number of resources which we've created, which you may find useful. So please do take a look at them. And if you feel somebody else would find them of use, please do share them. They are definitely for everybody. So, as my father often says, whenever we find an entrepreneur and or a leader who's been successful in any measure, we always find a mentor who's standing next to them. And so we've shared 4 examples here. And the words of what a mentor is, what mentoring is, mean different things to different people. And so we see Oprah Winfrey here with her mentor, Maia Angelou, and she shares that a mentor is someone who allows you to see the hope inside of yourself. Bill Gates in the top right, with his mentor Warren Buffett, shares that we need to surround ourselves with people who challenge, teach, and push ourselves to be the best that we can be. Richard Branson here on the bottom left is with his mentor, Sir Freddie Laker, and believes that it is the key to unlocking each of our entrepreneurial spirits. And then finally, Michael Jordan is with his mentor, Dean Smith, and mentions that his mentor, the bond that he had with his mentor was such that he was his mentor, his teacher, and his second father. So what do we mean when we talk about the role of mentors and mentoring? And we have a few polls that we'd like to share with you to give us a chance to hear from you and to then take these forward in terms of the webinar and exploring the different areas. So the first poll, which we'd like you to give us your feedback on is it's a single answer question. So it's mentoring only focuses on work, business, personal life, or both. If you could let us know your thoughts on what mentoring only focuses on. And we'll just give another 7 or so seconds. I can see them coming in quickly, so that's great. Thank you. Okay, 2 more seconds. Okay, great. If we can close that poll, please, Eva, and share the results. Wow, a resounding thumbs up to the both. Great, thank you. Just to let you know that we will be, I'll be looking at, we've got a number of polls, we're just going to run quickly and then we'll hold off commenting on them until the end and then we roll into the next slide. But great to see so many are convinced on the both side. Thank you. Okay, can we launch the next poll, please? So again, if you could let us know if you believe a mentor should find and fix the mentee's problems by giving them advice, ask questions, listen and be a good sounding board for the mentee, teach the mentee how to be just like them, or focus on helping the mentee to develop a particular competency set. Great, we'll just give another 7 or so seconds. Okay, thank you. Eva, if you wouldn't mind closing that poll, please, and sharing the results. Fantastic. So I think the resounding one is around asking questions, listening and being a good soundboard for the mentee, followed by helping the mentee to develop a particular skill or competency. Thank you. And then the third poll, please, Eva. So mentoring relationships are, and then there's a multiple choice question. So voluntary in nature and an opportunity for mutual learning and benefit, paid services from mentors, a way for mentees to get free advisory services, or a way for a mentor to share his or her experience with someone. This is great. I can see everyone's quite active on these polls, so thank you. Let's give it another 7 seconds. Fantastic. Thank you, Eva. If you could please close the poll. So I think the top one is around being voluntary in nature and an opportunity for mutual learning and benefit, followed by a way for a mentor to share his or her experience with someone. Great, thank you. Then the fourth one, please, Eva. Thank you. So for mentees, mentoring develops and strengthens business technical skills, knowledge and behaviors, self-awareness and leadership, confidence, adaptability and resilience, business performance and growth, access to new networks and peer learning. And this is, you can choose as many options as you'd like for this one. Give another 5 or 6 seconds. Great, thanks, Eva. If you wouldn't mind closing it, please. And interesting to see how they're not too imbalanced. So yeah, we'll definitely take that into the next, in the conversation in the next slide. Thank you. And then the final one, please, Eva. So again, it's a multiple choice question. Which of these people would benefit the most from mentoring? A startup entrepreneur who doesn't know which of their ideas to pursue. A micro, small and medium-sized enterprise or business leader who wants to grow their business. An employee who has growth ambitions but doesn't know how to achieve them. An organizational leader who wants to increase staff retention, performance, and loyalty. And an entrepreneur who joins an incubator accelerator program, which has trained and committed mentors in-house. Great, we'll give another 5 or so seconds. Great, thank you. I can see them still coming through. Give it a couple more. Great, thanks Eva, if you wouldn't mind closing that poll. Thank you. So the leader on that one was number 2, the micro, small and medium-sized entrepreneur and business leader who wants to grow their business, followed by, quite a tie position, the startup entrepreneur who's looking to understand which idea to pursue, and then the entrepreneur who joins an incubator accelerator program. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay. So really interesting to get your feedback on all of that. And I think when we come into this next slide, you'll see a lot of the questions that were being asked resonating within this slide. And so what we know from the last 12 years and what we hear on a regular basis is that there are so many overlaps between the definitions of mentoring, whether it's 360-degree mentoring, whether it's business mentoring, stroke advisory, whether it's business coaching, whether it's training, whether it's therapy. And there's a reason for this. And the reason is that they are similar, but with distinct differences as highlighted in this table, such as the time frame of the relationship, who sets and drives the agenda, how solutions are generated, and whether or not you need to be trained to offer that type of support. So I'm not going to go through in detail each part of the table. What I'd like to do is just pick out a few key messages around 360-degree mentoring and how it is similar and how it differs to the ones that it typically gets confused with, which is business mentoring and advisory and business coaching. And I think you'll see from the poll, a number of those areas should translate into these sort of messages as well. So 360-degree mentoring is a long-term trust-based relationship that often surpasses a program's timeline because there is a strong relationship and a bond that is formed. The relationship focuses on the growth of the mentee on firstly the personal level and then the professional level, hence the 360-degree nature of it, which is unlike any other form which focuses typically on one side. So you'll have the business mentoring, which focuses purely on the business side, the business coaching, which is purely on the business side. And that both of those are typically hard skills and professional related, professional sort of situation skills. Whereas in 360-degree mentoring, on the professional side, the mentor brings and shares their knowledge and experience to the table. And on the personal side, the mentor supports the mentee in strengthening their core. And the core that we refer to here is their confidence, their motivation, their resilience, and leadership. And most of the time, mentors who are mentoring in a 360-degree capacity receive no payment for their time. It's purely a voluntary engagement. And this, although it can be the same for business mentors, there is a higher propensity for people to charge within the business mentoring space than the 360-degree mentoring space. Within the 360-degree approach, it's the only approach where the mentee sets and drives the agenda and where advice is discouraged, therefore being solely focused on empowering the mentee to find and be resonant with their own answers and develop the thinking and the decision-making and capability themselves. However, there are synergies between business coaching and 360-degree mentoring, as coaching skills and frameworks are used in both, and hence why they are the only two which require training, whereas business mentors and trainers don't necessarily need to go through the training. And a question that we're often asked is, does the 360-degree mentor need to have direct sector or business experience? And the short answer is yes, in that they need to be from a business background so that they can understand and empathize with the entrepreneur. However, because the 360-degree mentoring focuses primarily on the entrepreneur and the leader, and then the business behind them, the mentor doesn't necessarily have to be from the same sector. And what we've seen through our programs is that diversity and cross-sector matching often brings a very different level of exposure, perspective, and therefore often yields great results. I know that I've gone quite quickly over this, so if there are any questions regarding the definitions and the details, please do post a question in the Q&A section on Zoom, and we'll try to answer this at the end of the webinar. So moving on to human capital development, which is really what we're talking about here today. Often people see the development of human capital as an either or. It's either I have a mentor or I have a coach. However, as we've seen from the previous slide and also from your answers within the poll, they have different nuances and they have different focuses that need to be recognized. And in our view, all are valuable and all are needed at different times within an entrepreneur and a leader's journey. However, the key is that they need to be equally strengthened, both the capability and the capacity. And what do we mean by this? So if we look at the slide here, we have the person in the middle, and we have capability on one leg and capacity on the other. Capability are the skills, the knowledge, and the behaviors that are actually easily measured today and are quite commonplace to find places where we can upskill in these different areas. Capacity, however, is the confidence, the motivation, the mindset, the adaptability, the resilience, to the point that when someone is knocked down, they get back up again, they dust themselves off, they learn quickly about what just happened, they gain clarity and alignment of their vision and go back out there to face it all again. So if you imagine yourself as this person in the middle of the slide, your right leg is your capability and your left leg is your capacity. I'm just going to run a quick poll just to see and to see if you could answer this question. Within yourself today, which one do you feel is stronger? So within yourself, which one do you feel is stronger? Your right leg, which is your capability, the skills, the knowledge, and your behaviors, or your capacity, your confidence, mindset, motivation, adaptability, resilience, and alignment? Give that a couple more seconds. Fantastic. Thanks, Eva. If you wouldn't mind closing the poll. And I'm really interested by these results. Whenever I ask this question, I normally get it the opposite way around, which is where people feel stronger in their skills and their knowledge, and less so within the confidence areas and the resilience areas. And so especially during these times, we need, yes, the skills and the knowledge of how to navigate through the turbulent waters. But what we're finding through our entrepreneurs and our leaders today is actually it's the other side. It's the capacity that really needs focus. And so great to see that everyone, the majority here are saying that capacity is actually strongest for them. So thank you. And close that down. However, even if one does feel stronger than the other, the key for us is to be fully balanced. As business leaders, we need to invest in building both. And therefore, a question I would leave you with today is, what investment are you going to make in either developing your capability and or developing your capacity? And looking at this graphic now, which is where we brought the two circles from the previous slide together, we can also see that if we don't fully maximize our capability, if we can't fully maximize our capability and gain the return on the investment that we seek without actually investing in our capacity as it surrounds it. And interestingly, going back to that slide where I mentioned on 360-degree mentoring versus the others, 360-degree mentoring is the only form of human capital development and investment that actually enables us to focus on and nurture both the capability and the capacity at the same time. And to explain why this is the case and the critical role that mentoring plays in enabling entrepreneurs and business leaders to gain the clarity they seek, to increase their adaptability, resilience, and confidence, so that they can then get themselves and their business ready for whatever is the next phase and these current times, the new normal and the future opportunities that will present. We need to look at the formula which we utilize from Tim Galway's book, The Inner Game. And this formula is potential minus interference equals success. The book was originally written about tennis coaching. However, we've applied that into our mentoring context. And we believe that everybody has potential. However, many are not able to convert this into success. And the definition of success that we're looking at here is whatever the definition of success is to the individual person who is being mentored or who's being engaged. And the reason for why it's not converted into success is because of the interferences. And we break these down into external and internal interferences. The external are the skills, the knowledge, and the behaviors. How do I find something? How do I do something? What do I do if? These are all questions that you can easily ask a friend, a family member, a colleague, Google. There's no real self-identity or emotion attached to asking the question, and you're pretty much going to get an answer quite quickly from somebody. And so this is very much the capability side. If we go back to that previous slide where we're looking at the man with the two legs. However, there's another side to interference that is critical for us to look at, and that is the internal. And these are the fears, the limiting beliefs, the insecurities, the psychological factors that we've knowingly or unknowingly adopted and held on to since childhood. This is what feeds into our capacity. And so in order for us to think about them in the first place, let alone explore them, reflect upon them, and then take the action that we want to take, we need to have a safe and trusted space in the form of a relationship which is set up with empathy at the core, which is set up to enable and allow for exploration, and where we don't feel judged. And when we speak to our mentees about some of the interferences that they face, many of them come, yes, with access to finance being probably the highest one out there, but many come with these: lack of support, fear of failure, loneliness, helplessness, stress. Stress is a key one that we see time and time again. And these internal interferences are being further exacerbated during these challenging times. And so this is why we believe that we need more and more effective 360-degree mentors in society to support them, to get through what they're getting through and deal with the heavy feelings that unfortunately they're facing. So where does mentoring come in? By bringing mentoring into the equation, we're able to fully and holistically support the strengthening, again, of both of those legs, and addressing the external and the internal interferences, and thereby facilitate the unlocking of full potential and being there to support the process of converting that potential into success. And by having a long-term trust-based relationship, which often turns into a friendship, it allows for that support throughout that process. So based upon the fact that the majority of the people who have joined today are focused on entrepreneurship, we'll take a deeper look into why why mentoring is so important for entrepreneurs. And so if we look at the entrepreneur hockey stick that we have here, there are 3 key areas that when an entrepreneur really critically needs a mentor. The startup and pre-break-even phase, which we've also called the valley of death, the growth phase, and then the success phase. And if we look at the startup phase and that valley of death phase, this phase is when a startup company exists in a world of uncertainties. Success is heavily reliant on the factors such as a founder's confidence, their motivation, their creativity, and their resilience. And entrepreneurs struggle to break even in these first few critical years, and they experience stress, pressure, as well as a number of those other internal interferences that we mentioned before. And the way that mentors can support them through this and really be a critical force of nature for them is by being a confidential sounding board and offering support such as new perspectives, their experiences, giving them space to reflect, giving them the opportunity to be challenged, to clarify their personal and their professional visions and make sure there's alignment, and then to establish their priorities and roadmap, explore their blind spots, and identify areas which require personal development, and how to manage their own learning process so that they're taking learning that they may be getting from an incubator and accelerator and actually applying that to the business rather than leaving the learning in a book or on a webinar or on a piece of paper. Within the growth phase, the skills that people need to work on a growing and established business are very different to those that are required at startup phase. And the mentor can broach the key question, who should lead the business, and then smooth this transition. They can assist an entrepreneur to recognize and reflect on their strengths and weaknesses and adapt their skills and outlook to the development needs of the business. They can identify possible limitations that may affect the business and identify together with the leader risks and opportunities, as well as consider what other inputs and other avenues the business may need to look at in order to grow. In the success phase, this is when revenues surge, the spotlight is on the entrepreneur as well as their business. Complacency and boredom, hubris and neglect of themselves, their personal lives and their business can set in. This is often what we refer to as the crash and burn phase. However, with a mentor by their side, entrepreneurs can receive constructive criticism, remain grounded, remain humble and curious, and therefore manage their ego and ultimately discover their next learning curve. From this graphic, you can see that 75% of the entrepreneurs that Mowgli has worked with are in the valley of death phase, which is that they are pre-break even. We're very conscious that a considerable number of the entrepreneurial businesses will fail as a result of this pandemic. However, it is the business that will fail and not the entrepreneur. And so through mentoring, we're providing our mentors with resources to enable them to stand next to their mentee as they potentially grieve the loss of their business and financial security and or dreams, but encourage them to get back up again, dust themselves off, digest the learnings, gain clarity and alignment of their vision for the new normal, and then be open and ready for the next opportunity. There's a testimonial here from one of our mentees in Kenya who, in short, was looking to close down her business. However, through her mentoring, was able to revive her business, and even in this time, is actually continuing on with the business. And it's not flourishing because of the situation, but it's definitely still moving along. So what value do entrepreneurs receive from mentoring? I'm going to just quickly go through these, but these are the top 10 areas that we see. So gaining exposure and guidance is key, gaining clarity of vision, building meaningful networks, attracting investment, and increasing their creativity and capacity to innovate. And then there are a number of testimonials at the bottom from mentees, which kind of speak to some of those different points there. So what value do entrepreneurs receive? So taking it down another level, we track impact on 3 synergistic levels, starting with personal growth, which leads to business growth, which then leads to economic growth. And so if you're a bit of a data geek like me, here are some impact measures that showcase the average across all of our entrepreneur-focused programs, noting that 75% are in that valley of death phase. So I'll now hand over to Maia to speak more about our programs and the online capability, but please do put any questions into the Q&A box and we'll answer them at the end.
Great, thank you, Kat, for a good insight and overview of mentoring. So we've been running mentoring programs for the last 12 years as Mowgli. So starting in Jordan in 2008 and then expanding throughout the Middle East, North Africa, and then Sub-Saharan Africa and Kenya in the last 4 years. We've learned a lot in that time and we want to share some of this with you. And we've adapted and changed our programs based on that learning throughout the time. We run our programs in English, French, and Arabic. Just to mention that. So first, let's look at where mentoring fits in. So obviously, as Mowgli, we're mentoring specialists and we're quite niche in our work. But you often find mentoring mentioned in programs, sometimes as an afterthought almost, in larger programs, especially kind of in incubators and accelerators and programs that support entrepreneurs. So we've really made mentoring our focus. And mentoring is quite a specific intervention for entrepreneurs and usually fits in and complements other support within programs. So a program might support entrepreneurs to access a loan or startup capital, but sometimes this isn't well managed by them. But when you combine access to finance with mentoring, you actually find that the default rates are much lower. For entrepreneurs, with training is often a key component of many entrepreneur support programs, business skill training, finance training, marketing training, but actually you find that training alone often doesn't lead to behavior change. So isn't on its own that effective. But if you combine training with mentoring, then entrepreneurs are much more likely to put what they've learned into practice. So actually by combining mentoring with other interventions, you're actually enhancing that impact. On the flip side, entrepreneurs who might not have access to other support within the ecosystem, through mentoring, they might be able to identify what specific support they need and then go out and find it. So actually in a lot of our programs, you'll find that after being part of the mentoring program, they have gone out and looked for finance and been able to access finance, or identified other skills they need or gaps in their knowledge and gone out and found that because of mentoring. So mentoring really does amplify the impact of other interventions. So that's really where it fits in, either on its own or as part of other programs. So I just wanted to give you some examples. Kat obviously mentioned some of the partners or clients we've been working with. I just wanted to look a little bit more in depth at 3 particular programs. So generally we run programs supporting entrepreneurs. So entrepreneur mentoring programs, which are generally end-to-end mentoring programs where we're involved throughout the process. We also work with leadership mentoring programs. So these might be with corporates, focusing on leaders who want to progress in their career. For other clients, they might say to us, we just want you to train our mentors. We've got a mentoring program, but our mentors aren't specifically trained in mentoring. Can you come in and train our mentors? or we would like to run a mentoring program and we want a coordinator to run that. We don't really know how to run the program. So these are 3 areas that we really work in. So I'll just give you a quick example from each one. So with the first one, in Tunisia with the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, this program's now finished, but we ran a program we ran the mentoring component of their Women in Business program. So this was a program for women business leaders who wanted to grow their business, and Mowgli came in and ran the mentoring component of this program. Other components were, again, access to finance, access to training, access to technical assistance. So we provided the mentoring component with really the aim of helping these entrepreneurs make some difficult decisions they had to make, and grow their businesses. In Kenya, under the leadership mentoring program, we worked with Safaricom. And this was really to increase the number of women in senior leadership positions. I think this is a goal all the way from kind of large corporates to the UN to many international organizations, to increase the number of women in senior leadership positions. And mentoring can play a very important role here. So obviously some organizations might have their own mentoring scheme. For other organizations who don't have that, we can work with them to help them to set up a mentoring scheme within their organization, with the mentors being the senior leaders within the organization, mentoring more junior staff to help them to move up their career progression. The third example, so with Oxfam in Palestine, we're currently running a program, an agribusiness program focusing on agribusiness incubators to enhance their impact and reach. So again, with this one, Oxfam was working and supporting a number of agribusiness incubators. They wanted us to come in and train their mentors. So train mentors who were working with the incubators, and also to help them to run and train a coordinator to run the mentoring program. So they're just some examples to give you a little bit more of a taste of some of the different programs that we do. So let's go on and look at what the key components of our programs are. So the starting point is always to define the scope of the program. So what are we trying to achieve through the program? So this is really critical because it helps us to define the scope of the program, whoever we're working with. Is it, as Kat kind of was talking through the Valley of Death, are we working with startups? Are we working with growth entrepreneurs? What are we trying to create? Or is it creating jobs, or growth within the business, or environmental entrepreneurs? And this is really critical because it helps us to obviously define the whole program. The next stage is the recruitment, both of mentors and mentees. This can be from either an open pool, so where we're kind of doing an open call for people to come and be trained as mentors, and for entrepreneurs or leaders to join the mentee pool. Or it can be closed. They might have a particular target group that they're focusing on, so we'll recruit within that. Generally, obviously, we haven't actually mentioned this, but the way Mowgli operates is that we don't have our own mentors. Part of our remit is to build up mentoring capacity within the local ecosystems. So we always recruit and train local mentors because we find that yields much better results, and it has a sustainability component too, because those mentors will obviously go on and train others, not train but mentor others in future. So after we've recruited our mentors and mentees onto the program, then the preparation is really critical. Obviously, mentees are recruited through a mentoring awareness session. It's really important to get the right people onto the program who know that they're going to have know what the scope of the program is and that mentoring is right for them. For mentors, we're really looking that they have the skills and the outlook that we're looking for, but mentor training is really critical. and I think this is one of the unique things for Mowgli, is one of our USPs is the mentor training. We find that mentors who've been trained are 66% more likely to have successful mentoring relationships than those who are not trained. So it's really, and this is some research done by David Clutterbuck, and this is really critical in all our programs. Mentors will go through a training preparation program. It's more of a mentoring journey. After that, we do the matching. So the matching is really critical too. It's quite unique to Mowgli. It's based on a successful mentoring relationship is really based on trust and also chemistry, rapport, which will eventually lead to friendship between mentor and mentee usually. So this matching is we spend quite a lot of time on that, and it's a really important component. And then most of our programs tend to be 12 months. So after mentors and mentees are matched, they'll receive 12 months of ongoing support from a Mowgli team member, so from one of our project coordinators or program managers. And that is really critical to help to build the network, to provide them ongoing support, and learning throughout the course of the program. Maybe I'll just mention also that the mentor training tends to be quite short at the start of the program, 2 to 3 days, but then is an ongoing process throughout the 12 months where they get a lot of support and skills build up. And coming back to Kat's capability and capacity, I guess the mentor training is really building up the capability and then the capacity as part of the ongoing support. So looking at our mentor training curriculum, this is just a snapshot of some of the things that are covered as part of our curriculum. The full syllabus, so our full mentoring program from kind of start to end, which I just covered in the previous slide, is accredited by the European Mentoring and Coaching Council, and that obviously also includes the mentor training component. So just a few things that are covered in the curriculum is obviously the role of understanding their role as a mentor. They're not an advisor, they're not a teacher, they're not there to tell someone what to do. And this is often quite hard because I think our natural instinct is always, no, you shouldn't do that. My advice is to do this. But actually as a mentor, your real role is kind of, as we saw in one of the polls earlier, to really listen to understand and actively listen, and maybe to provide a reflection, but not to tell people what to do. Developing peak rapport with the mentee, really to get to know them well, is also a critical component of 360-degree mentoring, which is really based on trust, building up that trust with their mentee. Asking powerful questions is also a skill that is critical for mentors to have. And then a range of tools and techniques that they can have in their mentor's toolkit to use according to the situation and the challenge that their mentee might be going through. So up until now, most of our programs have been run face-to-face, obviously with online components. So a lot of the recruitment would be done online, and follow-up and support with mentor and mentee peer calls done online. But the mentor training and the mentor-mentee matching has, for most of our programs, been done face-to-face. So here in the picture, you can see one of our programs, a EU-funded program in Jordan last year, where it's kind of a speed dating session between mentors and mentees before they're matched to get to know each other. Then on the next slide, we have, so one of our facilitators, Richard, who might also be on this call, illustrating one of the tools that we use quite a lot is one of our core pieces of our training, which is the Hero's Journey, which is based on Joseph Campbell, one of his tools. And then the next slide shows obviously mentors and mentees. I think this is from a graduation ceremony in Kenya with Safaricom after kind of the end of a 12-month program. So while the face-to-face component of the mentor training workshops and matching is critical, has been critical in most of our programs to date, the actual mentoring that they do is often done virtually. So it's up to the mentor and mentee to agree how they will manage their relationship. Sometimes it's through Skype or WhatsApp or phone call. So that's really down to them to decide. So having our mentor training online, which is something that we've been working towards for the last 2 years, is really exciting for us. As I said, I think our mentor training is one of Mowgli's unique selling points. It feels that now is quite timely. I know everyone's kind of going towards the online bandwagon now because of coronavirus and everyone working remotely. But for us, it's really been an iterative process that we've been working towards over the last 2 years, because it helps us to bring the costs of our programs down significantly, have a much wider reach, so that we're not just restricted to working in individual countries and having mentors and mentees from those countries, but having a much wider program. But it's been a challenge because, as you have seen before, the mentor training is very much a journey. It's very experiential. So putting that online has not been easy and has taken quite a few iterations to get right. So our online offering is a combination of facilitated webinars, videos, reading material, toolkits for mentoring, and then interactive peer learning and networking between other mentors on the program. So as close as possible to replicate the face-to-face program. The face-to-face mentor training is generally 2 or 3 days of full time. Obviously online, we have spread it over 6 weeks. So 6 to 8 weeks for the mentors to go through this. So what have we learned from we're just wrapping up the first pilot phase of our program in Kenya. So what have we learned from running the online mentoring program? We've learned that commitment to an online program is harder than it is on face-to-face, which is, I guess, it's obvious. If people are present for 2 days, they really are present. They have less discipline if they're going to participate in a 6-week program. So dropout rates are higher. So this affects our programs if we need to run particular numbers. So if we want to have 15 mentors trained at the end of the program, we have to take on larger numbers at the start to take into account to allow for those higher dropout rates. The human relationship is really important. So obviously the mentoring relationship is based on a very human-centered relationship. So allowing those relationships to develop with the online program is also really important. So that network is vital. The good news is that the quality of the mentoring is not significantly affected. So if we compare the mentors who come out of the face-to-face versus the online, they're equally good mentors at the end of it. And the satisfaction for both mentors and mentees on the online and face-to-face, again, is equal. So we're seeing some good outcomes from our online. I'll just go to the final slide. Yeah, so I think, as many of you saw from the flyer, if you just go back, Kat, quickly, we have 2 different three offers at the moment. One is the kind of mentor training, which is purely the mentor training component. Another one is mentor training with ongoing support from the mentor team. And we're very happy to be offering this now. One of the challenges that we've had in the past of doing face-to-face is that we haven't been able to take on individuals into the mentor program. They have to be part of a larger cohort. Whereas now this allows us, the online program allows us to take people who want to train themselves up as mentors and gain those skills to come on the program. And then we also can do online programs, end-to-end programs, as we have done before, but offer them online. And then if we go into the final slide, who might be interested in our online offer? Where from September this year, so we're hoping to launch an online mentor training program with support from the mentoring team for individuals to sign up. So we don't need 12 or 15 people in a cohort to sign up. Individuals will be able to sign up to it. Who might these be? So people who want to improve their mentoring skills. So perhaps incubators and accelerators who have mentors as part of their team, but they haven't specifically had training as a mentor. So this is perfect for them. So 2 or 3 people from different accelerators and incubators could sign up. Again, entrepreneur support programs or entrepreneur support organizations who again want their staff to train up as mentors and don't want to run a full program could also join this cohort. And then leaders and individual entrepreneurs who want to hone their mentoring skills are also able to sign up to this program. So I think for us it's a really exciting time to be able to bring people together who want to train up as mentors and learn those skills together in a cohort. So because it is the first cohort, we will be offering a 30% discount for those who sign up for the first September cohort. But then, of course, for others who want to run a whole cohort, we can discuss doing either an online program or a face-to-face program as well. It's an option, obviously, depending on how the situation evolves with coronavirus. But so we're very happy to talk to you whether you're interested in the individual program or the cohort-based program. I think Eva's going to run a poll, so if you would like to get further information about either one, just sign up there and we can send it out. And as Kat mentioned, the idea with this webinar was really to give you an overview of what mentoring is and our programs, how mentoring can fit in, and our online offer. We will be running a mentoring awareness session, which is much more of a experiential journey, perhaps, into what mentoring is, and to experience it a bit more. So we will be running that at the end of June. So you can sign up to that as well. And I think in the chat box, if you look in the chat box, there will be a link that you can then go on to, I think. So any questions that we have? I'll have a look in the chat box. Kat, I don't know if you've...
Yeah, thanks, Maya. I'm just actually looking at them now, and just trying to find where it starts. So I think I'll just start with a question that we had through, which is, have you assessed the value gained by the mentor from his experience working with mentees? And how do we measure this? So great question. And it's one that when we first started 12 years ago, we completely neglected. And it's only when we'd run the first few programs in Jordan and Lebanon, and we started to hear the feedback that mentors were giving us with regards to what they were getting from the program, that we realized that we'd missed a trick. And we started to now capture data from the mentors themselves on their own experience and on their own journey in terms of self-awareness building, leadership, etc. And so we track both mentors and mentees and the differences when they come into the program and then when they leave, so that we can see our mentors, and we use a number of different tools for this. And so we look at, have the mentors developed their ability to be empathetic? Have the mentors developed their coaching skills? Have the mentors developed those active listening skills that Maia was talking about earlier? Are they more creative problem solvers, having now worked with typically an entrepreneur who was wrestling with how to get around barriers? And so absolutely we track that now, and we have, as well as we had in the, when I said about there were 3 different levels of impact, there was the first, which was personal growth, then the business growth and professional growth. We have the same for the mentors. So we look at how is their leadership being strengthened? How is their core skills on a personal growth side being strengthened? And then how does that then feed into their professional setting, so that they're able to now carry that forward into their own work and develop and be a stronger leader within their own professional work. In terms of, and I hope that's answered your question, Abdullah, there. A question from Hala: how does Mowgli recruit its mentors? Are there specific criteria like age, etc.? So I think Maya's gone over a little bit around, sort of the recruitment side of mentors and mentees. We, even though our syllabus is accredited by the European Mentoring and Coaching Council, we customize every single program that we run to fit the needs of the program itself. And so we set at the beginning of every program the recruitment criteria for the mentees to start with, because they are the customer in our relationship, and then the mentors after that. And so really it can differ between program to program. The 3 that Maia mentioned, EBRD, Safaricom, and then Oxfam, were very, very different criteria for the mentors in those programs. Also, what are the mentors trained on? We've given a little snapshot of what the curriculum includes. And then to clarify, and this couples up with a couple of other questions, to clarify the difference between mentoring and coaching, especially when it comes to short-term mentoring programs. So the clear-cut difference for me is around coaching. For me is around skill and competency development. So if we run an assessment on ourselves, such as Strengths Finder or Myers-Briggs, and then we realize that there are some areas that we want to strengthen within our capabilities, and therefore we hire a coach to help us do that. And so I've had coaches in the past who have been focused on leadership, who've been focused on public speaking, who've been focused on, how to lead a team from startup phase into growth phase. And so they're very specific around the key challenge that I'm facing. Whereas a mentor is a much wider relationship and focus, and they bring their experience within the business world, within that professional context that we are recruiting from, and then coupled with the skills and the knowledge of how to mentor on a personal level, they then are able to offer now a much wider scope of support. And as I mentioned, the agenda is set by the mentee and is directed by the mentee, whereas in a coaching relationship, it's very much set and driven by the coach. But if you're interested to learn more about this is really what that mentoring awareness session that we spoke about, that'll be taking place at the end of June, is going to be going into in a lot more detail. I mean, this was an hour's slot versus a sort of a 3 to 4 hour slot where we look at this in a lot more detail. So please do sign up if you're interested in that. But often what we do find is that coaching is very much a short-term fix, which is definitely required at the moment. However, mentoring has a medium to long-term benefit, because it really builds capacity to weather those knocks that we're going to get down the road. In terms of just looking for other questions here. Are the mentor network for random people and incubators to access? So we don't give our networks out to people at the moment. We're quite, given the way that we work and the fact that we recruit for certain programs, we don't make that network accessible to everybody because there's a lot of sort of protection as well around what are the mentors going to be engaging with and how they're then going to be supported. So we'd definitely like to have a look at that. But if it's something of interest, please do reach out and we can have a chat about that. So please do reach out. Do we have a mentor training program for not-for-profits? And do we have any mentoring programs for artisans in the Middle East? So we don't have, if I take the first question, any programs for not-for-profits at the moment, so to speak. We're running a program at the minute with the Marva Foundation that's focused on conservation leaders, and many of those are not-for-profit leaders. And that is a wider leadership development and mentoring program. But that's focused mainly in Europe and Africa. But absolutely, it's one of, being a not-for-profit ourselves, it's something that we would love to support more and more of, because we know how difficult it is to survive and then to grow a business in general environments, let alone these. And so yes, we definitely are open to that. And our curriculum can definitely be tailored to any of those sectors. And in terms of artisan programs, we haven't to date run anything so specific as artisans, but again, it's something that we're definitely open to. Just looking at, just checking to see we've answered key questions. There's a couple here, Maia, with regards to the online program, around the cost of it and the discount that we're offering.
Yeah.
You're able
yeah,
to
so we'll be sending out, I think there was some costs already in the flyer for this webinar, but we will be sending out, if you click on that you want further information on the individual mentoring training program, we'll be sending out more details about that. And that will have all the costs on it, with the discounts as well for the September cohort.
Great, thank you. A couple more questions. Do mentors select the programs and the projects they're willing to take up, or are they assigned? So we recruit mentors specifically for programs. So willingness is a key criteria within the recruitment. And so we don't allocate anybody to a mentoring program unless they are willing to actually participate and commit to the program. Commitment is a key criteria for us to look for, because it is a 6-month to 1 year program, and we want to protect the interests of both the mentee and the mentor, and therefore we really value the commitment side of it. So yes, mentors do select the programs and the projects that they put themselves forward for. Question here. Does Mowgli have any appetite for mentoring in China? Really interesting one. So we have appetite really for mentoring anywhere, providing there are a couple of key ingredients that are in place. And again, it really depends upon the program, and also whether it's an in-person program or an online program. And some of those key criteria are, number one, the language of the program. We currently run our programs in English, Arabic, and French. If the language is compatible with that, then that's definitely a key ingredient that's been sort of ticked off the list. The second, if we're doing the recruitment for mentors, we want to make sure that there's a good pipeline of mentors or professionals that could be interested and match the criteria for the program. And likewise, if the program is involving entrepreneurs, then we look for the same. Another key area is looking actually at the ecosystem and how cohesive an entrepreneur serving the ecosystem is. That doesn't deter us, but if we are doing recruitment and it's not a very cohesive ecosystem, that does actually add quite a bit of complexity to the program. But yes, so the short answer is yes, providing there are a few things in place for us. Yes, we will be sharing the slides, so that's no worries at all. Okay, just going through. How do we measure success? Great question. So for us, it's, when we first started, success was all around entrepreneurial growth. And we've then, grown our dreams and our aspirations to include leadership growth as well. And the 3 levels of the synergistic impact that I mentioned, which starts off with personal growth, is really where it begins for us. Because we believe that if we can strengthen the capacity, so that's the confidence, the motivation, the resilience, and the mindset, then that will then lead to greater business growth and professional growth, which will then lead to really what we're searching for as well, which is that economic and social change. And if you're interested in seeing more of sort of the impact measures that we look at, we have our, on the right-hand side of the screen, actually, it's that Now This Is Mentoring 10-year impact report, which we released last year, which has a lot more detail into the different impact areas that we track. So please feel free to check that out on the website. Okay. Then is the mentality of mentees region specific, or is it a universal human trait? Really interesting question. I think I'd love to understand more in terms of what you're specifically talking about with the mentality of mentees. I think so please feel free to reach out to us on that. I think one of the things that when I think about mentality of entrepreneurs is hustlers and always looking for access to finance, access to network, and then also, you know, sort of gaining access to someone who's going to support them develop their business plan. And so one of the things that we've really seen is, regardless of where we've worked, from Algeria to Kenya to Yemen to Palestine to UK, it's just a universal trait that entrepreneurs are hustlers and want to get as much as they can to really, you know, to grow and to realize their vision. But please, Declan, reach out, you know, with maybe a little bit more clarity on what you mean by the mentality, so that we can have a conversation on that. So that one's done. How can we become part of Mowgli Mentors in Lebanon? So we are currently completing on a program in Lebanon. We are going to be, which was the EU funded project. We will be recruiting for a conservation specific program in Lebanon. And I don't know, Maia, if you want to speak to that in, you know, sort of on a brief level as to what that is. And then if that, Patricia, resonates, then please do get in touch with us and we can keep you in the loop for that.
Yeah. So we're just launching a new program in Lebanon, which is with rural entrepreneurs who are working to support biodiversity conservation, traditional land practices in the south of Lebanon and Bekaa region. So if you're signed up to our newsletter, kind of our mailing list at Mowgli, if you're not signed up, I would recommend you sign up and follow us on social media, because when we do start recruiting for mentors for that program, it'll be an open call. So if you're linked into us, you will then see it. I think the recruitment for that will start probably in the next 6 weeks, something like that, and be over a 6-week period. So that's upcoming. So if you fit the criteria, then you'll be considered.
Great, thanks, Maia. And I hope that's answered your question, Patricia, on that. So a question here, which is which do I think is more important, having experience and skills needed, or a qualification or degree, so you have the knowledge but not had that much experience? It's more about giving an impression to a mentor. Interesting question. Maia, would you have any thoughts on that?
You go ahead. Thinking about it.
So I think that for me, knowledge is great, but if it can't be applied, then we're not getting the full ROI on that knowledge gain. And so if I look at from a mentoring perspective rather than a general perspective, from a mentoring perspective, there, you know, someone might not have done a degree, but has started 3 businesses who has all the experience in the world, which has therefore, acquired knowledge as he or she has grown, and therefore is able to pass that on to the mentee in a very practical way. But there's also other times when we're currently running a program which is focused on PhD students from Jordan, Egypt, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And, there's a high requirement there for qualifications, degrees, knowledge, as well as experience. And so again, it depends on the program. It depends upon the entrepreneur or the mentee that's being mentored as to which is going to be needed. But I think for me, everything comes in balance. I think having the knowledge, having applied the knowledge and the practical examples of that, and having gone through that journey is critical to then have the empathy and build that relationship with the mentee. I don't know, is there anything you want to add on, Maia?
No, I think just to maybe highlight, so if everyone who's still on the webinar, I realise we've overrun quite a bit, so thank you for staying on. At the end of the chat box, you'll see from Mowgli Mentoring, there's a link to a feedback form, so it'll only take a few minutes or a few seconds, hopefully. If you click on that and then share with us if you would like to receive further information about anything that we've talked about today. So either the individual online mentor training program starting in September, or to talk further with us about collaborating or working with Mowgli to run a whole program, a whole mentoring program, then do fill that in and give us some feedback also to the webinar. We'll be also sharing to all of those who've signed up for our newsletter and our correspondence. We'll be sharing the details of the mentoring awareness session that will go into a bit more detail at the end of June. So then if you want to learn more about mentoring, then do sign up to that. I think that's probably it for now, isn't it, Kat? Are there any other? I think we've covered most of the questions. Any final words?
There's just one question which has been flung by our founder at me, so I'm going to have to answer that or else I'm going to get into trouble, which is, how do we gauge the humility of the mentor? There's actually 3 questions in there. So how do we gauge the humility of the mentor? How do we assess, and do we assess and welcome failed entrepreneurs? And do we have any data sets on impact and efficacy of failed entrepreneurs in mentoring versus rookies in mentoring? So the first one, how do we gauge the humility of the mentor? So through our recruitment process, we're gauging this through written responses to questions as well as an interview. And in the interview, we have sort of it's a tongue-in-cheek assessment, which is called the egonometer. And at that point, we're looking for the levels of humility stroke ego within the mentor. And there have been cases where we have had to let people know that they're not being selected for the program because of that fact, because it's key, as Maia mentioned, that we have the right people coming into the program on both the mentor and the mentee side in order for us to get the outcomes and the impact that we're looking for. Do we assess and welcome failed entrepreneurs? Again, through our interview, well, the whole recruitment process, through the interviews as well as the registration forms, we asked them about previous business experience, and absolutely do we welcome failed entrepreneurs. They, bring so much learnings with them. And if we're looking at the current state at the minute, I'm very aware that a number of our mentees will be seen as failed entrepreneurs. However, I see them as strong entrepreneurs who've had businesses that have failed. And so it's now about how do we pick them back up again and help them go back out there, not be gun shy, and go back out and look at the opportunities that will be available to them. And finally, do we have any data sets on the impact and efficacy of failed entrepreneurs in mentoring versus rookies? Really good question. And we don't actually. Very honestly, we haven't assessed that. What we have looked at is entrepreneurs versus corporate leaders, but not with regards to failed entrepreneurs versus rookies. So yes, thank you. I hope that's answered the question. Great. Well, as Maia mentioned, thank you so much, everybody, for staying with us, and apologies for overrunning. And we'll be in touch with the presentation recording and the link, the slides. And please do fill out the form if you're interested in finding out more about the programs that we have on offer, whether it's online or face-to-face or attending the mentoring awareness session. And until next time, thank you and take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.